What's going on, guys? Welcome back for another video. You may be wondering, what the heck am I looking at? This is Treasure Gaust. It is a mix of fishing, Digimon, and yokai watch. If you grew up in the EU, you probably remember this as Catch a Beast. Unfortunately, we never got this in the West. The device is in English, so if you guys do want to try out the series, you can pick one of these up on eBay, pretty reasonably priced still. The series overall was pretty popular in Japan. It is a multimedia franchise. It got an anime, it got a DS game, it got manga, and it got multiple toys within the franchise, all of which we're going to talk about briefly. So the original device came out in 2007, and it's got some similarities to Yokai Watch in that Gaust are these electronic, sort of invisible ghost creatures, and the idea is that you are a hunter and you use this device to try to find them and hunt them down. It's got a clear screen, so you sort of see them through this viewfinder in the real world. It's got an internal compass that you use to turn the device around to try to hunt them out, and you've got a reel to reel them in. You can befriend them and use them to fight with you to capture others. It's a pretty interesting device. So, biggest issue with making this video is because the screen is clear and because the device has motion controls in order to track the Gaust, trying to record gameplay of this is not particularly easy, but bear with me. A little bit later down in the video, we will get to devices that you can play one-handed, which will make filming this much easier. But just to give you guys sort of an idea of what gameplay looks like, this is sort of what you'll be doing. And one of the reasons why you saw kids turning around in circles at the beginning of this video, you need to be able to rotate the device around in order to track it as the Gaust moves, in order to dodge attacks, and then you reel it in and you capture it. So once you capture the Gaust, you can either add it to your inventory, you have a limited number of slots, or you can sell it off in order to get currency. The currency you can use to buy other lures and equipment, or food in order to raise your Gaust, all in an attempt to increase your odds of catching the more rare Gaust. There's over 100 in the device, and the goal is to just capture them all and then beat like the late stage bosses. There are two main versions of this, the red version and the blue version, with version exclusives. In Japan and other Asia regions, there were different recolors like gold and black. They end up just being either a recolor of the red or blue versions, but you can trade and battle with these as well. The manga published in Koro in 2006 and ran for 6 volumes and follows Hunter, the strongest Gaust hunter. Gaust are magnetic creatures that basically just roam around the human world. They are typically unseen to the naked eye, and they're usually playing pranks on people. First 3 volumes follow Hanto, the main character, as he fights against Gaust and the 7 evil spirits and their assassins, and book 4 through 6 focuses around Hanto trying to obtain the legendary Gaust Ganova, which grants wishes. The story is about Hanto and Chidrin fighting against Han's family and powerful people in a tournament. So, as the lore goes, the Gaust Hunter Company, or the GHC, which is who Hanto works with, is a secret organization established to coexist with Gaust and do research. So the first device being the Dimension Rod, which is the first device that we have looked at, was developed by the GHC in lore. So the GHC is established in 2005 in lore to co-align with the release of the products in Japan. It's made up of 3 departments: the Navigation Department, the Development Department, and the Hunter Department. The Navigation Department are essentially the eyes of GHC, and they monitor Gaust activity and report it to the hunters, who then go and try to hunt and capture the Gaust for research. The Development Department obviously is the one developing the new technology and the new rods in order for the hunters to try to effectively capture the Gaust. So the company ends up inventing the GPS, or Gaust Positioning System, and shortly after that are able to detect position of Gaust using that. Shortly after the development of the Dimension Rod, a powerful Gaust appears above Tokyo, and it turns out to be one of the Axis Guardians, South Zerg. This is incredibly powerful, more powerful than anything that they've encountered before, And this leads to the first genetically engineered Gaust in order to challenge South Zerg. So they genetically modify a Koro dragon, yes, the mascot from Koro Koro, and they create Korogadron. I thought this was a pretty cool way for them to sort of cement Koro Dragon in the universe of Treasure Gaust, and Korogadron looks pretty cool as well. So as a rookie, you're starting out with the Dimension Rod at a low level, and you are ranking up as you are playing and encountering stronger Gaust as you rank up. And that is basically your mission. You are a hunter trying to capture Gaust in order for them to be studied. So after you've leveled up, the end goal is to basically capture all of the legendaries. You can only do this by hitting a certain rank and capturing a certain number of Gaust, and then you end up getting like this treasure lore and then the super treasure lore, and this allows you to encounter and capture the legendaries. Then you can challenge the North and South Axis Guardians, Ultimo, North Dragon, and South Zerg. And that's sort of the setup for the Dimension Rod, which again is the first device in this franchise. There's others, and the plot goes way deeper. There's a long document that is written by Cbit, the owner of the Blast Fishing Wiki YouTube channel. He's also got a Discord, so a lot of this information was pulled from that. So thank you to him for making all of this available, because a lot of the information is kind of scattered around. But yeah, that's the Dimension Rod. So now I want to talk briefly about the anime, the video game, and some of the other devices. Just getting the anime out of the way, it's kind of a weird thing. It only ran for a few episodes intentionally. I think it's just a little short mini series that ran for a few days in Japan. It is CG. It does have Hanto in it from the manga, and it follows him and a new character that gets introduced to Gaust as well. The first episode is on YouTube. The later episodes seem to be impossible to find. If anybody has any info on that, I'd be interested in seeing it. But yeah, as far as I know, it only ran for a few episodes in Japan. It was just like a little mini series. So that's the anime. So before we get to the DS game, canonically, the next piece of tech in the franchise and in the lore is the Strap Hunter. So this is an upgrade to the Dimension Rod and is fairly similar. The shape's a little different. It folds out more like a flip phone than like a slide phone, I guess. Still has the rod, but this introduces a new gimmick, being the straps. So obviously these were just added to add a peripheral for Bandai to be able to sell to kids to go along with the Strap Hunter. I think they are pretty cool. They look pretty neat. But what essentially they do is you slot them in and they instantly summon whatever Gaust the figure is based off of. Some of these are exclusive too. It's the only way to obtain the Gaust in the game. And then there's some special ones that like will trigger like events and stuff, which is pretty cool. So I'm not going to go too crazy on the lore for all of the rest of the devices, but I will sort of explain the differences briefly. So after the events that transpired in the Dimension Rod, they basically spent a lot of time researching Gaussonite, and they realized they could use that material to basically trap a Gauss soul inside, and this led to the development of the straps. And that's sort of the explanation for the in-game reason why the straps exist. There was an expansion device, sort of, if you want to call it that, called the Strap Gunman. This is probably my favorite of the two just because of the gameplay mechanic. So the rod is removed and is instead replaced with a trigger, so you're now shooting the Gaust instead of trying to reel them in. I really like this. It's also much easier to try to film with. You can put the straps in the device and summon them the same as the other. There are some version exclusives to the Strap Gunman. The whole list actually of Gaust is quite a bit bigger than the Dimension Rod as well. The Dimension Rod originally had 105 Gauss in it, and the Strap Hunter and Gunman together end up bringing the total to 225, 175 per device. So here is a better look at what the gameplay looks like. So you've got this radar, and you're basically searching around trying to find an encounter. And then once you do trigger that battle, then you can pick one of your Gauss. So you've got a total of 3 in the device, or you can insert a strap and you can use whatever Gaust is associated with that strap. So here I've inserted Shinobi Zerk, and I'm going to use him. This is a pretty low level battle, so it shouldn't take particularly long, but basically you are just tracking him left and right and trying to do damage to him. Sometimes they'll attack you, sometimes they'll try to run away, and you have to try to like chase them down and reel them back in. So gameplay is sort of the same for both. This one's just a little easier because you've got the trigger. But after you catch it, you can either keep it or you can sell it or let it go. In this case, I will sell it and get some money. The DS game is pretty interesting. It does some things that I don't think a lot of Nintendo DS games did, if any. So obviously this is before the 3DS, but the game introduces sort of a Street Pass feature where basically as the Nintendo DS detects different Wi-Fi connections, it populates different ghosts in the radar in the built-in game. So this is technically the next iteration in the lore. Basically the GHC created this as a way to get the regular populace involved in researching and capturing ghosts. So as you're walking around your neighborhood as a 10-year-old Japanese kid, which I definitely am not, you could detect ghosts through the radar system and capture them. After you capture them, you can fight them either as fodder to level up, or you can capture them. It also has a sort of built-in daycare system where you can feed them different things and try to raise some of their attributes and abilities. The game's pretty cool. It's basically sort of like an arena fighter. You sort of use the ghost to fight other ghosts. There is a plot line to it. I haven't played through the entirety of the game, but I have been playing it lately, and it's fairly fun. You can just kind of turn it on and sort of use it as a 3DS in terms of like trying to utilize the Street Pass feature. So it's a really interesting game. It's a cool game. There's no English patch or anything for it, but definitely worth checking out. The third generation of Treasure Gaust devices comes with the Gearlet Hunter. This is a lot of people's favorites. It takes a lot of the cool things from the Strap Hunter, but expands on it. So instead of the straps, you now have gears, and they function basically identically. They're just smaller form factor. You don't have this big thing just poking out of the end of the device. They sort of just slot in at the bottom. So aesthetically, I definitely think that I like these more than the straps. Smaller form factor, I kind of like the medallion look to them. And the cool feature on these is the centerpiece pops out, and then the outer ring offers like a different effect depending on what color it is. So some of them like boost like speed or power or attack or whatever. And these are interchangeable. You just pop them out, pop them onto something else. Some of them also change the element of the ghost as well. So it's a really cool feature, pretty interesting. I can understand why a lot of people like this device the best. It kind of takes the features from everything so far and just sort of expands upon it and adds the peripheral without having to have these figures sort of, I don't know, stuffed in a backpack or in your pocket or whatever. These are way easier to carry around if you were, 10 years old running around the neighborhood with these. Similarly to the Strap Gunman, they released an alternate device called the Gearlet Gunblade. This is again just like sort of an alternate device that gives you a different way to play. So instead of the reel, you have sort of motion controls where you can like hack and slash stuff, which is pretty cool. Don't have this one yet, but functionally very similar to Strap Gunman in terms of like just alternate play method. And then in terms of lore, basically the idea is that instead of the straps, they can save on resources by just creating these outer rings in order to contain the ghost instead of having to use so much resources and material to create the straps. There was a third device released as sort of a companion. Think of it sort of like the Pokédex of Treasure Gaust. It's called the Hunting Navalizer. And this thing is infamous for not working. This has connectivity with the other devices. You can trade ghosts from the regular device and then bring them into this and then train them up. You can use it sort of as an encyclopedia. It has a lot of interesting features. There's also some ghosts that are exclusive to this device that you need to use this device in order to be able to trade over to complete Gearlet and Gunblade. Ironically, the one that I got works perfect. So the big issue with these, apparently from the factory, a lot of them had misaligned touchscreens. This is a touchscreen device, and unfortunately most of them just don't work. Like straight from the factory, it's just, for whatever reason, there was some kind of issue with manufacturing, and majority of them do not work. In fact, the owner of Blast Fishing Wiki, the guy who keeps up with the wiki page and all of the articles, doesn't have a functioning one. So I got super lucky. Mine works fine. So it's a pretty cool device. I haven't spent a ton of time with it. I probably should at this point, just because I'm one of the few people on the internet that has a functioning one. But if you plan to get into the series, I would be wary of this one, just because the vast majority of them they just don't work. The last device they released was the Gaust Shot, and this changed things up a little bit. It replaced the gearlet system with the shot memories. Functionally, they were still very similar, just a different aesthetic, and instead of a trigger or a reel, you had this string ripcord thing that you would pull in order to damage the monsters. This also replaced the motion sensor with a light sensor, so different hues of light would produce different results in terms of what monsters you would run into. Unfortunately, at this point, the series had started to wane. It wasn't particularly popular. I'm not 100% sure how popular the series was to begin with. I don't think it ever really reached the same sort of level as Pokemon or Yokai Watch or Digimon or anything like that. But it was popular enough in Japan for them to be nostalgic about it, and then people in the EU who had the Catch a Beast stuff are still nostalgic for it today. I personally really like the devices. You don't have to like feed them or clean their poop or make sure they go to bed on time like a Tamagotchi or Digimon. It's kind of a cool desk companion to me. I sort of just set it off to the side, and periodically the thing will beep at me saying there's something on the radar, and I'll catch something occasionally, and that's sort of like how I enjoy the device. It's kind of fun. I like the novelty of it. It's cool. So that's everything, right? Well... So, Bakutsuri Bar Hunter is a 3DS game slash manga slash anime. It's sort of a spiritual successor to Treasure Gaust, so it's technically not Treasure Gaust in name. Instead of Gaust, you're now searching for bar souls. This is a pretty cool, neat little peripheral 3DS game. So it's got all these attachments that you connect to your 3DS. It's got a reel similar to the Treasure Gaust stuff. You're looking for these very Treasure Gaust looking creatures. And it's got the RPG elements and everything like that. It is augmented reality, which is pretty cool. This is a neat game. It is technically digital only, so if you want to play this now, you need a modded 3DS in order to be able to get the game. If you buy like the physical release, it doesn't come with a cartridge, it just comes with the peripherals to attach to your 3DS. There was also add-ons like lures that you could get, which would function with the 3DS, and then other QR code items that would give you different items or different encounters or things like that. So pretty cool series, definitely a spiritual successor, and I think that franchise was moderately successful, but I think with that, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much everything for Treasure Gaust and its sort of like spin-offs. So if you found this interesting, if you've watched this far, please hit that like button. I would appreciate it. Leave a comment. If you guys end up picking up one of these, I definitely would be interested if this has sparked anybody's interest. But subscribe if you haven't already for future sort of niche Japanese hobby content. I cover a lot of Beyblade stuff, but I also cover other niche hobby stuff. I will have a playlist for all of the other weird Japanese toys. If you guys want to check that out, feel free. But yeah, I think that's it. Thank you everyone for watching. Happy fishing, and I will see you all in the next one.